My parents ignored my urgent calls from the hospital because my sister was having a meltdown over a traffic ticket. Why are you making such a fuss? You're not dying, don't call in a panic. Maria needs money urgently now. When they finally graced me with their presence, they discovered the true cost of their neglect. My parents ignored my urgent calls from the hospital because my sister was having a meltdown over a traffic ticket. Why are you making such a fuss? You're not dying. Don't call in a panic. Maria needs money urgently to pay the fine. So I had my lawyer visit me in the ER, and when they finally graced me with their presence, they discovered the true cost of their neglect. The metallic tang of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, a stark sterile smell that did little to mask the coppery scent of my own blood. Every breath was a shell of victory. Each beat of my heart a painful reminder that I was technically alive. I lay in the harsh fluorescent glare of an emergency room cubicle, my left leg elevated and throbbing like a drumbeat of agony. The crash had happened so quickly, a blur of screeching tires, shattering glass, and then the world spinning as my car rolled into the ditch. I remembered the paramedics cutting me free, their voices calm but urgent as they stabilized my neck and assessed my injuries. The rain had been pelting down, mixing with something warm on my face that I later realized was my own blood. "You're lucky," one of the EMTs had said as they loaded me into the ambulance. Could have been much worse. Lucky wasn't exactly how I felt with what the doctors suspected was a compound fracture, possible internal bleeding, and a constellation of cuts and bruises mapping new territories of pain across my body. But I understood what he meant. I was alive when I easily might not have been. The thought sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the thin hospital gown or the cold antiseptic air. Doctors and nurses had come and gone, their faces kind but clinical, their questions precise. A young resident with tired eyes had explained the need for scans and possible surgery depending on what they found. An older nurse with steady hands had administered painkillers that dulled the sharpest edges but left a foggy awareness of my body's trauma. They had stabilized me, assessed the damage, and left me alone with my thoughts and the low, persistent beeping of the monitors beside my bed. The rhythmic sounds seemed to punctuate the silence, marking time in a place where minutes stretched like hours. That's when the real pain started. I fumbled for my phone on the small table beside me. The screen was cracked. A spider web radiating from the center, mirroring the fracture I suspected was blooming somewhere inside my leg. My fingers, shaky from shock and something else I couldn't name yet, navigated to my parents' contact. My parents, my emergency contacts, the people who were supposed to be there. The first call went to voicemail. The second too. On the third attempt, my mother finally answered, her voice tight with irritation. "Alex, what is it? Do you know what time it is? And your sister is having a complete meltdown. We're trying to deal with it." A cold wave washed over me, colder than the thin hospital blanket. "Mom," I whispered, my voice hoarse. I'm in the ER. There was an accident." A beat of silence. Then a sigh laced with impatience. "An accident? Are you okay? You're not dying, are you? Because Maria just got a traffic ticket. Can you believe it? A traffic ticket and she's absolutely distraught. She needs money immediately to pay the fine or they're going to impound her car. She's practically in tears." My father's voice, a low rumble of annoyance, came from the background. "Is that Alex? Tell him to stop making a fuss. Maria needs us right now. Why is he calling panicking?" Panic? My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs. I was lying in an emergency room, battered and alone, and they were dismissing it as a fuss because my 30-year-old sister was upset about a parking ticket or maybe it was a moving violation. It didn't matter. It was trivial. "Mom, Dad, I might have a broken leg. I'm getting scans." I tried again, the words catching in my throat. "Oh, Alex. Don't be so dramatic," my mother said, her voice softening just enough to sound condescending. "You're strong. You'll be fine. Maria needs us to focus right now. She's really sensitive about things like this. Why are you calling in a panic? You're not dying. Don't call in a panic. Maria needs money urgently to pay the fine." The line went dead. She hung up on me. The phone clattered from my trembling fingers onto the thin mattress. The cold metal of the hospital bed rails felt sharp against my skin. I stared at the sterile ceiling tiles, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, a sound that seemed deafening in the sudden silence after their words. "You're not dying. Don't call in a panic. Maria needs money urgently to pay the fine." Those words replayed in my mind, a cruel twisted lullaby. It wasn't just about the accident. It wasn't just about the phone call. It was about everything. A lifetime compressed into one brutal moment of clarity. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. Maria was the sensitive one. The one who needed extra help, extra patience, extra everything. If I got an A, it was expected. If Maria got a C, it was celebrated as trying her best. If I wanted something, I saved for it. If Maria wanted something, she threw a tantrum or looked sad and somehow the money appeared, often from my parents' savings I knew I'd indirectly contributed to since I started working part-time at 16. When I went to college, I worked 2 jobs to pay for books and living expenses, taking out minimal loans, determined not to burden my parents. Maria went to a state school closer to home and they footed most of the bill, complaining all the while about the cost yet somehow finding extra money for her social life. I remembered visiting her campus once, driving 3 hours after finishing a grueling shift at my own part-time job. She had wanted me to meet her friends, which seemed like a positive step. When I arrived at her apartment, I found her hosting an impromptu party, music blaring, red cups everywhere, and a new flat-screen TV that she proudly announced our parents had bought her as a study aid. Meanwhile, I was watching lecture videos on a second-hand laptop with a cracked screen that I couldn't afford to replace. On that visit, I had also discovered several past due notices for utility bills hidden under a stack of fashion magazines. Maria had laughed it off with a casual wave of her hand. "Mom and Dad will handle it," she'd said, unconcerned. And they did. Later that week, she called to tell me excitedly that they'd not only paid her overdue bills but had also set up automatic payments for the remainder of the semester so she could focus on her studies. When she graduated, they pressured me to help her find a job even though I was just starting my own career. "She looks up to you, Alex. You're her big brother. She needs your guidance." Guidance quickly turned into financial support. A few hundred here for rent, 1,000 there for a car repair, paying off a credit card bill she forgot about. It was always framed as temporary, just until she got on her feet, but the feet never quite landed. She'd get a job, lose it, need more help. My parents would sigh, wring their hands, and then call me. "Alex, Maria's really struggling. She's talking about moving back home. Could you help her out just this one time?" It would mean the world to us. It wasn't just Maria. My parents developed an expensive habit of needing help. A roof repair. They couldn't afford a medical bill, a car replacement. I sent the money, felt like a twisted form of tithing. My hard-earned money sent home because family helps family. I justified it. They were my parents. They raised me. Maria was my sister. She was just going through a phase. I convinced myself that this was love. This was family. If I gave enough, helped enough, was responsible enough, they would finally look at me with the same effortless pride they had for Maria even when she was failing. I remembered my college graduation day. I had graduated summa cum laude, with honors that had required countless all-nighters and sacrificed social opportunities. My parents arrived late to the ceremony because Maria had called with some minor crisis about her car not starting. They missed my name being called. When I found them afterward, my father had patted my shoulder distractedly while checking his phone, saying, "Good job, son. Expected nothing less from you." My mother had been on the phone with Maria, reassuring her they would call a tow truck and cover the repair costs. That evening, at what was supposed to be my celebration dinner, the conversation had been dominated by Maria's car troubles and her upcoming summer plans. My father had even taken a separate call from her in the middle of the meal, stepping outside for nearly 20 minutes. When he returned, he announced that Maria needed a new alternator and they would need to help her get it replaced tomorrow. My mother immediately began rearranging their schedule, completely forgetting that we had planned to tour the city the next day, my one request for the weekend. When I reminded them, they seemed genuinely surprised I was disappointed. "But Maria's stranded," my mother had said, looking at me as if I were being unreasonable. "You understand, don't you? You're the mature one." That was my blind spot. My deep aching need for their unconditional approval, for the kind of easy affection they showered on Maria, kept me tethered to this draining dynamic. I thought my sacrifices were building bridges, but they were just reinforcing the chains. There were moments of doubt, of course. Like the time I visited home, and there wasn't a single photo of me displayed prominently. While Maria's framed pictures covered the mantelpiece and walls, even old ones from high school sports she barely participated in. Or the holidays where conversations revolved entirely around Maria's latest minor drama. Or success. While my accomplishments were met with a brief nod and a quick change of subject. It felt like I was an employee, a reliable resource, but not a cherished member of the family in the same way Maria was. But I'd push the feelings down. They love you in their own way, I'd tell myself. They just worry about Maria more because she's the sensitive one. Lying there in the ER, the buzzing light, the antiseptic smell, the throbbing pain in my leg, their voices echoing, "You're not dying. Maria needs money urgently," it all clicked. There was no own way of loving. There was only this. This was the ultimate expression of where I stood in their world. Somewhere below Maria's parking ticket, somewhere below their inconvenience. The yearning for their love didn't just die. It was brutally murdered by their indifference in my moment of greatest need. This was my rock bottom, alone, hurt, and finally seeing the truth without the hazy filter of hope. And in that moment, the pain in my chest, the one not related to the accident, gave way to something else, something cold and hard: resolve. I wouldn't be the reliable resource anymore. I wouldn't be the backup plan. I wouldn't be the ATM. They wanted to prioritize Maria's fleeting, manufactured crisis over my real one? Fine. They could have that, but they would lose everything else. I reached for my phone again. My hand steadier this time. The cracked screen lit up showing their dismissed call. I ignored it. I opened my contacts and scrolled past Mom and Dad. I went to Ms. Emily Dawson, my lawyer. Calling Ms. Dawson from the emergency room felt surreal. My voice was weak, scratchy from pain and the raw emotion that had just ripped through me. "Miss Dawson," I said, trying to keep it together. "It's Alex. I'm sorry to call so late, but I'm in the ER." She was calm, professional. "Alex, are you all right? What happened?" I explained the accident briefly, then got to the point, the words tumbling out tinged with bitterness. I called my parents to let them know. They told me I was making a fuss, that my sister had a meltdown over a traffic ticket and they were busy helping her. They said I wasn't dying and shouldn't call panicking, and they hung up. Silence on her end for a moment. A different kind of silence than my mother's dismissive one. This one felt heavy, listening. "I see," Miss Dawson said softly. "Alex, I'm so sorry you're going through that. Especially now." "I'm done, Miss Dawson," I said, the words firm despite my pain. "Absolutely done. I want to cut them off. All of it. The money I send, everything. And I need to know what I can do legally to make sure they can never do this again. To protect myself. From them. From all of it." I quickly explained the history of financial support, the constant demands, the favoritism. Miss Dawson listened. Patiently. "Based on what you're telling me, Alex, this sounds like a clear pattern of emotional and financial exploitation," she said. "While severing personal ties is a choice, we can certainly take legal steps to formalize financial boundaries and protect your assets and future. We can revoke any powers of attorney, change beneficiaries on accounts, ensure they aren't listed in any way that gives them control or access should something happen to you. It will be messy. They won't react well." "I don't care anymore how they react," I said, and I meant it. The raw wound of their neglect in the ER had cauterized the last bit of me that cared about their approval or their public image. "What do I need to do?" "I can come to the hospital," she said without hesitation. "We can get some initial documents drafted and signed. Let's protect you, Alex." While waiting for Miss Dawson, a nurse came in to check my vitals. She was kind, her smile genuine. She adjusted my blanket, refilled my water. Simple acts of care from a stranger felt more meaningful in that moment than years of my parents' conditional love. I also saw a text pop up from my friend, Sarah. "Alex. Just heard you had an accident. So worried. Let me know if you need anything. Anything at all. Sending healing thoughts." A small, unexpected warmth spread through my chest. Sarah knew some of my family issues, but had always downplayed the severity, protecting them even from my friends. Her simple message, focused entirely on my well-being, was a stark contrast to my parents' call. It was a lifeline. It reminded me that genuine connection existed outside the toxic circle. Miss Dawson arrived about an hour later. She was discreet, dressed in a professional suit, carrying a slim briefcase. Seeing her walk into the sterile cubicle felt like reinforcements arriving, like help had finally come. She sat by my bed, calm and focused. She had brought initial documents based on our call. She explained each one carefully. Revocation of a general power of attorney I'd foolishly given my mother years ago just in case. Changes to beneficiaries on a small life insurance policy, revisions to a basic will draft I had done. Simple, logical steps to remove their legal access and claims. As I signed each page, my hand steadied despite the ache in my leg. A different kind of pain surfaced: grief. This wasn't just signing papers, it was signing the divorce decree for my family, the death certificate of the hope I'd clung to for 3 decades. Each signature was a hammer blow to the crumbling facade of family helps family. But beneath the grief was a growing sense of empowerment. I was reclaiming control. I was putting myself first, maybe for the first time ever. "Alex," Ms. Dawson said, pausing as I signed a form. "You mentioned you've been supporting them financially for years. Do you have records of this?" "Yes," I said, my voice stronger. I started keeping track about 6 months ago after Maria needed another emergency payout for a debt I didn't even know she had. Something just felt wrong. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I started saving bank statements, copying emails where they asked for money, even started hitting records sometimes when they call making demands or trying to guilt me. A survival instinct, I guess. That was the quiet twist. The documentation wasn't a sudden act of revenge. It was a slow dawning realization over time that the dynamic was unhealthy, coupled with a deep-seated need to validate my own confusing reality. They kept saying I was imagining things, that I wasn't helping that much, that they did so much for me. Part of me started documenting to prove it to myself, to stop the gaslighting from within my own head. Ms. Dawson's eyes registered a flicker of surprise, then approval. That is excellent, Alex. That documentation will be crucial if they decide to contest anything or, more likely, try to damage your reputation. It provides concrete evidence of the extent of the financial dependency in your efforts. I gave her access codes for online banking and pointed her towards cloud storage where I'd saved documents. She began compiling figures quickly on her laptop. The growing number on the screen, the total amount of money I'd effectively given away, was staggering. It wasn't just a few thousand here and there. Over the years, it added up to a small fortune, a down payment on a house, my own solid nest egg. Instead, it had propped up Maria's irresponsibility and my parents' lifestyle and demands. The figures made me feel physically ill. College tuition for Maria's repeated changes in major. Rent for apartments she inevitably broke leases on. Car payments for vehicles she would wreck or neglect until they needed costly repairs. Credit card debts that mysteriously appeared after shopping sprees or vacations with friends. Medical bills, some legitimate, others for specialists my parents insisted she see for vague complaints that never seemed to materialize into actual diagnoses. Home repairs for my parents' house that somehow always became urgent when I received bonuses or tax returns. Even the loans that were never discussed again after the money changed hands. Ms. Dawson's laptop screen showed it all in merciless detail, nearly 6 figures over the past 5 years alone. Money that could have funded my own dreams, my own security, my own future. But it wasn't just the money that hurt. It was what the money represented, a one-way relationship where my needs were invisible and my resources were communal property. Where my worth was measured by what I could provide, not who I was. As Miss Dawson worked, my phone buzzed again. A text from Maria, "Heard you're in the hospital? Hope you're not faking it for attention, LOL. Parents said it's just a sprain. Anyway, did Mom tell you I need that money for the ticket? It's kinda urgent." My blood ran cold, then hot with indignation. Not a word about my well-being, just a continuation of the same self-absorbed narrative. It solidified my resolve. This wasn't family. This was a business transaction they thought they were entitled to. Miss Dawson finished with the initial paperwork. "All right, Alex. This is signed and initiated. I will handle everything from here. I'll formally notify your parents of the changes. Given the circumstances, I anticipate their reaction will be significant. They are likely on their way here now, aren't they?" I nodded. A knot of dread tightening in my stomach despite my resolve. "Probably, after the hospital called them too." "Good," she said, her tone calm. "Let them come. We are prepared." We waited. The sterile room felt charged with anticipation. The quiet of the machines, the distant sounds of the ER. They were the backdrop to a battle about to begin, not with fists, but with truth and consequences. My leg throbbed, a physical anchor grounding me in the reality of my situation. My heart pounded, not from fear anymore, but from the adrenaline of confrontation. I looked at the stack of signed papers, the evidence Ms. Dawson was compiling. I wasn't the helpless child waiting for approval anymore. I was a man with boundaries standing on the truth. The door to my cubicle swung open and my parents walked in. Their entrance was a carefully orchestrated performance. Smiles plastered on their faces for the benefit of any passing staff. A hurried, almost theatrical, "Oh, Alex, darling." We rushed right over as soon as we could get away. My mother's voice was pitched just a little too high. My father looked impatient, glancing at his watch. They approached the bed, but their eyes landed on Ms. Dawson first. Their smiles faltered, replaced by suspicion. "Who is this?" my father demanded, his voice losing its performative warmth instantly. "Good evening," Miss Dawson said calmly, rising from her chair. "I'm Emily Dawson, Alex's attorney." The masks dropped completely. My mother's face went pale, then flushed red. My father's jaw tightened. "Attorney? What is this? Alex, what is going on? Are you suing us?" "No, Mom. Dad," I said, my voice clear and steady, surprising myself. "I'm not suing you." I looked them in the eye. I'm protecting myself from you. My mother let out a little gasp, clutching her chest dramatically. Protecting yourself from us, your own parents, after everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I repeated, a bitter edge creeping into my voice. Is that what you call it? Ignoring my calls from the emergency room because Maria was having a meltdown over a traffic ticket, telling me not to panic because I wasn't dying. Is that the sum total of what you think your obligation is? Their eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. We were just worried about Maria. She was very upset, my mother sputtered, resorting instantly to rationalization. And the hospital called us anyway. We knew you were fine. Fine? I almost laughed. A dry, humorless sound that hurt my ribs. I'm lying here with a potential broken leg, doped up on painkillers, alone because my family was too busy coddling a grown woman over a parking ticket. Don't tell me I was fine. You are making a mountain out of a molehill, Alex, my father said, his voice hardening. You are being overly dramatic. We were coming as soon as we could. Maria needed us. His signature phrase, justifying Maria's needs above all else. She needed money, I corrected him, the truth laid bare. She needed money for a fine. That was more important than your son being in the ER. Just like money has always been more important. My money. Miss Dawson stepped forward, holding a stack of papers. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, Alex has retained me to inform you of his decisions regarding his personal and financial affairs. Her tone was calm, clinical, a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing. Effective immediately, Alex is ceasing all voluntary financial contributions to you and his sister. This includes any allowances, debt payments, or assistance with bills. Additionally, he has revoked any powers of attorney, revised his will, and updated beneficiaries on accounts to remove you. She handed the documents to my father. He took them, his face a mask of disbelief. My mother snatched one from him, her eyes scanning the page, her mouth opening in a silent gasp as the meaning sunk in. The money, that was what truly hit them. Not my pain, not their neglect, but the loss of their reliable income stream. You can't do this. My mother shrieked, her voice losing all pretense of calm. We need that money. Maria needs that money. We've come to rely on it. Exactly, I said quietly. You've come to rely on it. You saw me as a source of funds, not a son. This is outrageous. My father roared, crumpling the paper slightly in his hand. After everything we sacrificed for you, we raised you. You owe us. His face was red with rage, his social mask completely gone, revealing the entitlement beneath. What do I owe you? I asked, pushing myself up slightly, ignoring the jolt of pain in my leg. Do I owe you for years of being second best? Do I owe you for constantly bailing Maria out while you praised me for being responsible then punished me by demanding my resources? Do I owe you for ignoring me when I was hurt? We never ignored you, my mother insisted, the gaslighting returning. You are imagining things. You are a cruel, ungrateful child. Maria is the one who struggles. She needs more support. You've always been the easy one. This was their core narrative. I was easy because I didn't cause them problems and provided solutions. Maria was difficult and sensitive because she constantly needed bailing out, which justified their focus and my financial input. Oh, you think I imagine things? I said, my voice dangerously low. About you ignoring me? About prioritizing Maria? I looked at Ms. Dawson. Ms. Dawson, would you mind playing the recording from earlier? Ms. Dawson nodded, taking out her phone. I had hit record on my phone right after my mother answered, fueled by a strange instinct, a morbid curiosity about how they would react. That recording had automatically synced to my cloud storage, and I had given Ms. Dawson access. She pressed play. The sterile room was filled with the tinny sound of my own strained voice saying, Mom, I'm in the ER. There was an accident, followed by my mother's impatient sigh, my father's dismissive grunt, and then their voices, cold and clear, why are you making such a fuss? You're not dying. Don't call in a panic. Maria needs money urgently to pay the fine. The sound cut off. Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My parents stared at Ms. Dawson's phone, then at me, their faces frozen in horror. Their own voices, their own cruel indifference played back to them in undeniable audio. The gaslighting died on their lips. The rationalization sounded hollow. This wasn't Alex being dramatic. This was them caught red-handed. What? What is that? My mother stammered, her face ashen. That, I said, looking right at them, is the truth. That is what you said. That is what you are. My father's face contorted with rage, a terrifying mask of exposed entitlement. You? You recorded us? How dare you? That's illegal. Actually, In this state, it's not under these circumstances, Miss Dawson interjected calmly, shattering his bluster with a simple legal fact. And the content speaks for itself. Wouldn't you agree? It rather clearly illustrates the nature of the relationship and the priority given to Mr. Miller's actual medical emergency versus his sister's minor issue. This recording, coupled with the extensive financial records Alex has compiled, she gestured towards her laptop screen where the large sum of money was visible, provides a compelling case should you choose to contest Alex's decision to cease financial support. It rather dismantles any claim of his being ungrateful when viewed against the backdrop of his substantial contributions and your documented neglect. They were cornered. Their image was shattered, not just to me but to a neutral professional observer. The financial loss was real, the evidence undeniable. Rage warred with panic in their eyes. "We will sue you," my mother screeched, pointing a trembling finger at me. "We will tell everyone what a horrible son you are. You will regret this. You are free to pursue any legal action you deem appropriate, Mrs. Miller," Miss Dawson said smoothly. "However, be advised that any such action would require the full disclosure of these facts and records in a public forum, and defamation is also a legal matter." I looked at my parents, these people who were supposed to be my safe harbor, my family. They looked like strangers, ugly with greed and thwarted control. "Go," I said softly. "Just go. There's nothing left to say." They hesitated for a moment, perhaps expecting me to back down, to apologize, to beg. But I just looked at them, empty of all the old hope and pain, just seeing them for who they were. Finally, seething, defeated in this one crucial battle, they turned and walked out of the cubicle. The crumpled legal papers still clutched in my father's hand. The quiet sound of the door closing felt like the end of an era, a toxic, painful era. The silence they left behind was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with the quiet of the hospital machines, the distant footsteps in the hall, and the faint scent of antiseptic. But for the first time, it also felt like my space. No longer waiting for their validation, their call, their approval, just mine. Miss Dawson gathered her things. "They'll fight this, Alex," she said, her voice returning to its normal calm tone. "They'll try to make your life difficult. Expect angry calls, texts from Maria, maybe even some nasty emails or social media posts aimed at making you look bad." "I know," I said, and I did. The storm wasn't over, but the eye of the hurricane had passed. The core confrontation was done. "I'll handle everything," she assured me. "Your documentation is strong. Their behavior, particularly that recording, it will shut down most of their legal options very quickly. They may try to make noise, but they have no standing to force you to support them." After Ms. Dawson left, the physical pain returned to the forefront. A constant dull ache. But it was almost a welcome pain, a grounding sensation after the emotional whirlwind. I was physically broken, but for the first time in a long time, I felt whole, intact, free. The days in the hospital blurred. Physical pain, tests, consultations, but the emotional landscape had shifted seismically. Sarah visited, bringing flowers and genuine concern. We didn't talk much about my parents. We didn't need to. Her presence, her simple kindness was a validation. She saw me. The expected backlash began almost immediately after I was discharged home, hobbling on crutches. Angry. Texts from Maria, desperate, pleading voicemails from my mother alternating with furious accusations. I didn't answer. Ms. Dawson had advised minimal contact, letting her handle all communication. Then came the social fallout. My parents were masters of managing their image. They started subtly, vague Facebook posts about the pain of family misunderstandings and the ungrateful nature of some people. A distant aunt, likely fed a distorted version of events, sent me a disappointed email about family loyalty. It hurt seeing their manipulation at work, seeing who chose to believe them. But then came the countercurrents. Sarah defended me subtly to mutual acquaintances. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, someone who had distanced herself from that side of the family long ago, reached out. "Alex," her email read, "I heard what happened about your parents and Maria. I just want you to know I believe you. I saw the patterns too, for years. You did the right thing. It takes incredible courage to put yourself first like that. You're not alone." That email brought tears to my eyes, not of sadness, but of profound relief. An objective outsider, someone who had witnessed their behavior, confirmed my reality. It wasn't just me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. These connections, built on shared understanding and genuine support, were my new family. Miss Dawson handled the legal noise efficiently. The parents' threats of lawsuits faded when faced with the evidence Alex had compiled and Miss Dawson's calm, firm responses. Maria apparently tried to get a lawyer to force me to pay her ticket fine, but that went nowhere. The financial faucet was well and truly off. My leg healed slowly. The crutches were replaced by a cane, then nothing. Physical therapy was hard, but straightforward. It was the emotional and psychological healing that was the real marathon. Therapy helped. Talking through the years of manipulation, understanding my own patterns of seeking validation, learning to accept that the family dynamic I longed for was never real. The financial freedom was palpable. It wasn't just about having money. It was about the absence of the dread. The dread of the phone ringing, of the email asking for money, of the guilt trips. My bank account grew, not just in numbers but in what it represented, my labor, my value, for me. I could save, invest, plan for my future, a future no longer tethered to propping up others. I thought a lot about what family meant. It wasn't blood, not inherently. It was respect, love, support, boundaries. The people who showed up not because they were obligated but because they cared. Sarah, Miss Dawson, my cousin. They were my family now. Losing my parents and sister felt like a death. A complex grief for people who were still alive. There were moments of sadness, waves of mourning for the what if. But those moments were fewer and further between. They were replaced by peace, by self-respect, by the quiet strength of knowing I had saved myself. My journey from that sterile ER room wasn't just about a broken leg healing. It was about a broken spirit mending. I had been financially exploited, emotionally neglected, and gaslighted by the people who were supposed to be my foundation. But in their ultimate act of neglect, they had given me the painful gift of clarity. They showed me that my worth wasn't in my wallet or my willingness to sacrifice, but in my inherent right to be treated with dignity and care. It took being broken, injured, and abandoned in a sterile room for me to finally understand the true meaning of boundaries. It took the raw, undeniable truth of their indifference to free me from the need for their approval. I lost a family that never truly saw me, but I found myself, and that was a recovery more profound than any physical healing. To anyone out there who has felt unseen, unheard, or used by the people you call family, your feelings are valid. You are not imagining it. Your worth is not measured by what you provide or how easily you can be controlled. Setting boundaries, even with family, is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-preservation. It is an act of courage. You are not alone.